Okay, we call this special session to order. First order is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, thanks for everyone showing up for this special session. The only item on the agenda is to hear from Nate and Western States Ventures on the final, recommending final approval on the final plan for Deer Springs Phase 1. Okay, so a little history. The town is undergoing a little bit of fluctuation with regards to our town engineer. So our town engineer is working for Mustang Development now, has been for a while. The town has been seeking to replace those engineering services. The town put out some RFPs. The mayor formed a selection committee. The selection committee made a selection on Thursday. I don't know if Phil has publicly announced it yet, so I'm not going to say who it is. But so we have a gap of engineering services, and we were unable to do an engineering review of the final plan. The developer has asked if we would consider doing a conditional approval for both the Planning Commission and the Town Council, with a couple stipulations. One is that the engineering review comes back clean, or if it comes back with issues, that Nate will solve those issues. Or if the issues are unsolvable, then we go back to the starting point for the final plan. Okay? So with that as our background, Nate, did you want to present anything?
I was hoping it was up here. I've sent you guys everything you have. I don't know.
Yep.
I can answer that question.
Yep.
Just might not be.
Can you?
So you're willing to back out?
Can you either plug into it, because I got it right here,
position,
or
and if the engineering firm. There's not anything else wrong with engineering. What do you mean? I mean, there might be a.
So here's, you have
They don't like this.
HDMI you plug in. Okay. So can you log this in
I have a really good engineer.
to the meeting?
So there's not going to be anything fine.
Maybe while we're doing that.
Okay. So it's your rear end, so to speak. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't see any issues at all. Okay. But that doesn't mean
Browser.
find some
Go to Zoom.
fire hydrant flag, or you want something here or there, and we'll make those changes. We'll make any changes you recommend. So.
Which one do you want to pull up?
I guess just a flat map.
Is that one, you've got them numbered 1 through 10, which is
I just sent you everything you guys requested. That doesn't need to be brought before the meeting, obviously. Just
You don't want 10, which
Yeah.
is your architectural guidelines.
I think it's probably 1.
Here's
But let me-
yours. Fine.
Yeah. I will say nothing has changed since the preliminary plan.
We're only looking at phase 1, right?
You're in.
Did you drop that to
Just open
30
the browser.
units or
31 units?
Yeah, the fire department. They let us do the 31. Okay.
But they made a stipulation that I couldn't understand what they actually were talking about in that approval letter. They talked about,
You have the approval letter.
yeah, I have the approval letter if you want, I can pull that up. I just can't follow it, and it's just.
I'll turn on the
Not being knowledgeable on this stuff back.
You know, maybe before we start with the,
Here it is.
with the maps and presentation, does it make sense, Mr. Chairman, to sort of understand why we're being asked to conditionally approve something? What's the rush?
Sure. Nate, you want to address that?
Yeah, because, well, basically, I turned in for, well, the conditional. I turned in my plans over 2 months ago to have them looked at, and they were not looked at. Even though David has made some suggestions, we made the changes he suggested, he wasn't willing to write a letter, I guess not being on staff anymore, to approve it. So we turned them into Epic. Epic did not want to review them, because they probably didn't get the RFP, I guess. And so, but I have some deadlines with my builder, and so we're anxious to get started.
Can you just describe a little bit, Nate, of the structure of your relationship with, is it Homes that are going to be building these?
Yeah, so it's completely different. So in Deer Waters, I'm the builder with Homes. I'm putting up the lots, they build, we split profits. Deer Springs is different. They're actually buying the lots from me. I'm putting in the improvements.
So who will be, so Homes will be building the building?
Homes is not doing Deer Springs. Well, they might do Deer Springs. I've got a buyer for Deer Springs, and I'm not sure who their builder is going to be.
Okay. So at the point you're going to exit this project completely?
No, I'm putting in all the improvements.
So you're still the developer?
Yes.
You're just going to have a different builder and property owners?
Yeah. The buyer, I'll just tell you, the buyer is Larry Miller, his family.
Okay.
Which was brought to us from Homes. And so Homes most likely is going to be their builder. Don't know for sure. I don't know their whole thing, but I'm in a contract with Larry Miller.
And he's done what projects in the area? Does he know anything?
He's a car dealer guy.
Yeah, I mean,
Huge car dealer.
billionaire, owns the Jazz.
I understand, but what?
All kinds of projects, all over the state.
Residential projects,
Yeah.
somewhere
And
close,
commercial.
somewhere close to here?
I don't know. I don't know what they do. But
You've sold it to him, you don't know what,
I haven't sold it.
but you just said you were under contract.
I'm under contract.
Right, under contract, and you have not, looked at any of the homes that he's, project
Well,
has
they
been
don't
involved?
build homes. They're putting up the money. They'll bring a builder in with them.
Okay,
It's more of an investment for them, and they'll bring a builder to build the homes.
and you have no idea who that builder is?
Like I say, Homes brought Larry Miller to the table. So I would guess it's Homes, but I don't know for 100% for sure.
So in the design, review phase, who are we gonna be dealing with?
Larry Miller or their builder.
Now, for design review committee, your MDA and HOA has its own DRC. I don't know that you've named the town members
The
yet.
town has, I think,
Two
the mayor and 2 seats. Maybe not the mayor. I think at least 2 seats.
Yeah, we have 2 seats.
2 seats, yeah.
All right, so the DRC for that HOA has not been officially named yet.
No. Okay. We should probably get there pretty quick.
Okay, so there was really one thing that I wanted to get from you, Nate, and do we have a mic up there? You know, take that, put it on the podium. So I noticed in the fire district's review, they have asked for an additional road that will go from your road to the pump station.
Okay, so, yeah, this is something I just threw out. So they were willing to approve it the way it is, even though it's about 2,100 feet long. They like their fire height, or they like their roads to be about 1,300 feet without having a second access. And so he was ready to write the letter. And I said, why don't we just do this? I have a road that we use. I'll go to the table, but we have a road we use. I think it's right here.
Yeah.
We use this road. We move a lot of gravel and topsoil off there. And so he wants me to gravel and gravel and road base this road. If we don't have the other stuff done, we're planning on getting to Jordan Parkway this year with our second access. So if that's not done, we'll gravel the asphalt is through here, and then we'll just gravel it through here. And that's the reason they did that. It shrinks. Now we're within their parameters of the 1,300 feet.
Okay.
So that's the
600 feet to the pumping station.
yes.
Okay. All right, commissioners, do you have any other input or feedback or questions for the developer?
I have a question, but at this phase, it's kind of surprising that I'm asking the question because I should have asked the question earlier, in the preliminary, and it may actually already be addressed, which is maybe the fact that, I haven't actually seen the document. There is a will service, requirement, and the only letter that I see is one from JFD. Aren't there supposed to be additional ones?
The gas company does not, the gas company and power company will not give will serve letters until your final map is approved. It's weird, but that's the way they do it.
So that's a learning experience for me, because then why should we require it on the checklist?
Yeah, I didn't know it was on the checklist. I just saw will serve letters, but yeah.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, they won't, because I guess they probably had so many maps turned in, it took so much of their time, and then they don't get approved. Now they won't give you a will serve letter until you have your final approval. I mean, I've met with them a number of times, making sure everything's fine and good. In fact, they're not 100% sure where they're going to bring the gas company, if they're going to run it down shoreline, if they're going to take it across from the apartments and bore underneath. It's all on my cost, but they'll analyze that when I get them the final map. So, but I've met with them at preliminary to make sure everything could be done, and in fact, I met with them long before preliminary. Before I bought the property, I met with them to make sure we could get gas and power. And I sent you guys the JSSD letters.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, gas and power, that's not an issue.
So I will say that we've all seen the preliminary plan. In fact, we approved it. Approved is the wrong verb to use there, but we recommended for approval to the town council just at last month's meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jerry, this is Sarah. I apologize, but I couldn't really see, because I'm remote, the explanation between what happened with the gravel, where the gravel road would be, and
so Sarah,
how that
right?
reconciles.
You see this building right here where the little hand icon is at?
Yes.
That's the pump station. So there's an existing road that Nate has been using here for road work and bringing dirt and gravel to and from. So what the agreement with the fire district is that if he doesn't have a connection through the Jordanelle, by what time period?
Just when I'm ready for phase 2.
Okay, before phase 2, which is adding additional homes at that point or additional properties, that they would make this an emergency.
Well, I don't want to say, not before phase 2, before I start construction on the homes. They want to have a short, it's not phase 2.
Okay.
It's before I start construction on my first house. That way. That's a simple thing. It's about 6 loads of gravel.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a big deal at all. It's already
Compacted.
There's been moved off there. All the topsoil's been moved off. It's literally 6 to 10 loads of road base, and that's it. So that's not a big issue. But I did miss though. It's when we start construction, they want to make sure that they were within their footage, and so it's when I basically in our report, when I start construction on the houses, we'll have that put in.
Okay. What happens after you get a connection up to the Jordan Oaks Highway? What happens to that gravel road?
Probably go away.
What does that mean? You'll remove the gravel?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want people going up there. That'll be right next to someone's house, and there's really no place to go.
And it's not going to look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get rid of the gravel.
And then
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I want to say,
an embankment right there, right?
Yeah.
Comes behind house one.
yeah,
That's either the high spot.
Yeah.
12 and 13.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One additional question. Before you get, obviously, to phase 2, there are going to be some people who are going to be living, right?
I would think not.
Really?
Because, I mean, phase 2, this phase is 100% single family.
Yeah.
They want to do some townhomes in the next phase this year, and I can't do another phase until I connect on a Jordanelle Parkway. So I would think that I would think we'll start this phase immediately when we finish it. We'll start phase 2 without having. We'll probably have homes under construction, but we won't have people moved in because it's a 6-month, 8-month build on these residential homes.
The question I have is, relates to, the end of the street, being able to turn around, get back out with like garbage truck or, distance stretched into winter times.
I was really surprised that he didn't have us do this, but usually in normal subdivisions, not normal, but other towns, the fire department looked at it, but they usually make you put a temporary turnaround for those things, and he didn't address that. And so if you guys would like that for safety, I'm very comfortable putting a temporary turnaround.
Well, you've also got a stub out there, a partial stub out of those 2 roads. I think it would probably be sufficient.
We could easily do a hammerhead.
And,
Yeah, yeah.
Yourself and don't worry about it.
yeah, no, yeah. No cul-de-sacs there,
Then
just
the guy can
extend those.
actually just go back and forth and turn around.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let Steve know. We'll do a hammerhead or a temporary turnaround.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the lots or anything like that, so Steve's my engineer.
Yeah.
I'll make, and you know what?
Jackson, right?
Yeah, Steve Jackson. I would bet that's something that the new engineer would say, but the fire department didn't say anything, which I was really surprised.
Yeah, yeah. So where I thought you were going was construction traffic up and down this, this completed road now.
Being as I've driven a plow for a while, I've
I knew where
learned
you were going.
what it means to get to a dead end like that.
All right, so the question is, on the table then, though, about, construction traffic will all have to come through there. So
Yep.
there's a high likelihood there'll be some major repairs needed to that road. That's
So,
right?
my bond will be in place, and you guys, I think it's a 1-year bond that the town requires. So from when you guys pass off my subdivision, so I'll have all my improvements in, the bond's in place, and then you guys will come and re-inspect it in 1 year, and I fix whatever is broken up or whatever. And I'll have an agreement with the builder that if any curb and gutter is broken, that they help pay. So the bond's just a surety that you guys will get paid, and it'll be 10% of everything. And so really the only problems you could have are curb and gutter. And so, you'll have plenty of money there'll be plenty of money there to cover the curb and gutter if it's broken.
Okay.
We see this a lot of times.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
No, and I hate, actually, Nate, you answered my questions before we got started.
Okay.
Sounds like it's subject to, so, it's like, you're, like I said, you're best on the line.
Yeah, and there is,
Yeah.
there's some risk. I can't see there being much risk. I use the same engineer that JSSD uses. He's a very good engineer. If it was someone I had never used before, I'd be concerned, but I just don't see, everything is in line. But you guys pay them to find things, so they'll find a few things, no question. So, but they won't be major.
All right, Sarah, any last comments?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so at this point, I'm gonna open it for public comment. If anybody from the public wants to weigh in, have any questions or make any statements, you're welcome to do so now. Just come up to the podium and state your name and whatever you have to say. Okay, that's kind of what I thought was gonna happen, so.
Don't everybody rush.
That's right. So, no public comment is closed. So, I'd like to ask for a motion, and keep in mind this is a conditional recommendation for approval, and the conditions are, a clean engineering report for review, and if there are any items on that that need reconciled or rectified, the builder or the developer concedes to those. If they are unable to concede to those, then we go back to redo the
So,
final
Mr.
plan.
Chairman, one of the things I would think we would do is ask Dan to also craft the exact language. That's the sense of what we want to propose tonight, but I think we want to have him craft the exact language.
Yeah, and
To make it,
he will have to do that for town council.
Right.
Again, we're a recommending body, not a not an approval body. So, you know, we'll pass that along to town council. Dan has already emailed that he's fine with the approach. So in concept, he's good with it. And yes, but the time town council, votes on it, there should be.
So we got that as a condition, and the other one is the extension of that
Correct.
net, and that's it, I think.
Yeah, but before the first house, construction begins on the first house, we need a secondary access point, either the road by the pump station or the connection to.
But you don't have to make, that recommendation conditional on that, that's already in the fire
Well,
letter.
keep in mind that the fire is an advise, but not consent vote. So
We have to put all
we
three.
need to put all of it in.
They do have to sign my Mylar.
That's true. In your case, for the MDA, they do have to sign yours, which is different than most of the rest
So
of
at
the
that
town.
point, we can leave it at the two.
Yeah.
Nate, you think you were gonna have a second road before, or as you started construction?
Yeah.
So before you had any construction occurring, the second road should be in.
Yeah, just for fire.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so you need a motion, so I motion that we recommend for approval, Deer Springs, final, phase one, thank you, with 3 conditions. First condition is, subsequent to an engineering review, okay? And obviously satisfying the engineering review. The second one is, either an extension, I don't know how you want to phrase that.
No, you
Second
can-
access, and what's the third one, which was turnaround at the end?
Yeah, we don't really want a turnaround, right? I don't think we would prefer a turnaround if we could avoid it.
Yeah, we just rather have it extended.
Right.
We'll put a hammerhead.
Hammerhead is what you call it. Okay. So those 3 conditions.
Okay. Since we did a little wandering, I want to restate it so that we have it good for the recording.
Yep.
And 2 is there were 2 conditions on that engineering review as well. So we either get a clean review, or if there are items on the review that Nate agrees to rectify. Or if he's unable to, then the
Bring it back.
conditional approval is rescinded.
Yes. Yeah, and you and I already know why we're doing that. Based upon some of the, agreement, or the motion, let me put it that.
So who motioned that? Because it seemed like everybody was involved in it.
Yeah, like I said, I want to clear this.
I motioned it, Jerry clarified the condition, okay? And so at that point, I don't think we have to restate it. So it's really looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, so we'll take a vote. We'll start on this end, Kurt.
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Venus? Sarah?
Yes.
Jerry is yes. So with that, the yeses have it. So you have your conditional approval. You're free to bring it before the town council now. Okay? All right. Okay, so that was the only item on the agenda. We have had some difficulty getting some things on our regular agenda, so I will ask the commissioners if you want. There were 2 things I've been wanting to show you guys from a Teams perspective. One is how you can sync your Teams to your local drive, so you don't have to open it from Teams. If you don't want to, you can open it directly from your OneDrive for Business in this case. And 2 is how you can set up alerts, so you're notified when documents are edited or added and that kind of stuff. So if you have interest in doing that, we could do that tonight.
Yeah. Can I ask one question?
Yes, Nate?
So that map is Deerwater's phase 1. Everyone signed it except,
Deer Springs phase 1.
no,
No, this
Deerwater's.
Oh.
Yeah, Deerwater's.
Yeah.
Except you, the mayor, and David Erickson. I don't know if you're comfortable signing it tonight, but if not, we're just gonna talk to Mary tomorrow, and he said he was ready I'm ready to report it. I've got 2 holes dug out there, but I need to get them down reported.
Okay.
So,
Let me,
why don't you ask him?
Yeah, let me touch.
So,
yeah,
if you have any questions, call me, but this is signed off by the attorney.
okay.
So, yeah.
That's fine.
Oh, he's out something tomorrow. So,
You
yeah,
got
that's
it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll catch up with him tomorrow.
Okay.
and
Thank you
we'll
for
get
the special meeting. I do appreciate it.
All
We
right,
appreciate all the work you've done and efforts
Good luck.
for the town.
Great.
all right,
Okay, thanks.
thanks. All right.
Are we also gonna have just some general discussion? I mean, I raised a point. Is that gonna be at the regular meeting, or where are we gonna do that?
We can, since this is, it wasn't on the agenda.
Discussion.
So we can do a discussion item or administrative stuff that isn't noticed. So we're fine to do that. So if you've got something else you want to.
Just, I had sent to everybody pictures of heavy equipment, all over my street that has been parked there for conservatively 90 days with no activity, maybe 60 days with no activity. And, you know, I think Vitashu had emailed me today. He thought that there was something in the permitting stages that we might be able to look at. But I just think from just a town perspective, it's too late for me. I mean, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. Hopefully the spring will come and they'll get what they need done and then get those pieces of equipment out there. But it looks like, it doesn't look good. Doesn't reflect well on the town or on my property as friends are coming by to look at it. It looks like this is actually a heavy equipment storage site. And so I was wondering whether this gets attacked through an ordinance, if everybody thinks that this is worthwhile. And I don't care if the heavy equipment, in the ordinance, in my mind, would be something like in a already established and occupied street. I mean, if it's, you know, over down in Shoreline Phase 2 and it's 500 yards from any occupied structures. Only when it's on a residential street it currently has occupancy.
I agree. I think it's not only in your area. There's been probably 3 or 4 others, and then they were on Hideout Trail when they were working there. You could hardly get around, and you're on that curve. Very dangerous. You
Right.
know?
Yeah, I was gonna say too,
Oh,
that it's a safety issue.
Safety issues, it's bad. I don't know what, and now with the snow almost parked out into the street, it gets worse.
Yeah, I think those are two things, and I think, you know, we're gonna be talking about snow removal and the provisions in that ordinance, next Thursday, so that covers the things parked in the street and whatnot. But in your case, that heavy equipment is not in the street.
No, it is not.
It's off the street, but
Correct.
it's still an eyesore.
Yes, it is.
So I think to your point is maybe the distance to an inhabited dwelling is probably the way to go.
Yep.
Say you can't have it parked against some people.
For a certain period of time. I mean, you know, you're gonna have to park it overnight or over the weekend, or as long as they're actively using it. But if they're not actively using it,
Yeah.
you have to take it off.
Why not attack the surety bond?
Yeah.
Attack them in their pocket, you know? You say, hey, we're gonna, you know, the 10% that you're leaving for the surety bond is now collectible unless you do something after 90 days.
Yeah, the other,
I mean, we'd have to write something out to that effect. Again, that probably gets back to Title 11, which is not very, clean.
well, the other thing that Phil typically does is he pulls permits. So if there's violations, then that's just the thing he goes to quite frequently. is he pulls permits.
There's 2 parts to this. Okay, there's one which is the future, what we do for the future. There is a second part, which is there something that we have to do now with what's going on? So I talked with both Carol and Ken to find out if there were building permits that were already issued to both of those property owners, to find out if what was going on was you had a storage facility going on, or if it was actually something that was another builders or contractors, but actually placed on lot 61, lot 62. Okay, so if that's the acute piece. And the acute piece, it turns out that both of them have been pretty significantly impacted by weather conditions. If you saw, 62 had a crane out there today. So they are effectively starting, yeah, up to midnight. 62 is effectively trying to do the work, but they have been in communication with Kent on the fact that they have actually had pretty significant delays. 61 is a lady that owns that property that is actually involved with the builder on an ongoing basis, and she has also encountered delays with regard to that. So in my mind, what you got there is you're not going to be able to fix immediately. So it's both properties are going to end up being, the equipment's going to be used, especially now in late March and early April.
Right.
That doesn't affect the future issue.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's too late now.
Totally different.
But going forward, I think
It should be.
there should be a period of time, make it 10 days. If a significant piece of equipment is not
Yeah.
utilized in 10 days, it needs to be removed from the site.
It's, in my mind, it's not really so much of an ordinance, it's actually in the description of the building permit and what your rules are with respect to that, so that what Phil can do or Ken can do is say your building permit is pulled. So it's in that portion of the ordinances or that portion of the title that you should actually go and do that.
The only issue with that is if they are severely weather delayed and you pull their permit, they're like, who cares?
Right.
I can't work anyway.
Yeah, but there's another part to this, and that is typically that piece of equipment is, unless he's a real big builder, it's rented.
Yeah.
So he has a motivation to try to actually utilize the thing and get it out of there.
Yeah.
And it's a surprise to me that these two pieces have actually been sitting there, because they've been sitting there since easily in November, in my mind, that have been sitting there, because I've been driving past there, frequently in that regard. So there should still be something that is an interface between our public works and the builder to find out what's going on. If there is a plausible explanation to why that's actually being done, okay, then I think the public works guy should be able to give them a bit of an allowance to stay longer or stuff like this. But if there is not an appropriate explanation, I think he has to move it, or he loses his building permit, or he has to repay to get a new one because it's expired.
Well, maybe the solution here is that this unpublicized report an issue to the town. There's apparently an email that you send an email to say, hey, this guy's got a heavy equipment parked on my street that's been there for 2 months. Somebody do something about it. And then, Kent goes out there and does what he needs to do.
Yeah,
So,
the surprise to me is when I talked to Kent, he was completely aware of both things.
I cannot imagine that Kent doesn't know everything that's going on.
Oh, yeah.
He's always on top of stuff.
Yeah, he
It's
is.
just he needs to be given the direction and
if no one's complaining, if no one's complaining, maybe he thinks,
No, he's bumped people and given them citations on without anybody complaining. But I think, Kurt, what you're saying, giving them the right direction and the support necessary, because if he can't cite the guy, then it's word,
yeah.
I mean, he has to be Mr. Nice Guy to the darn thing.
So where, Vetus, do you think this
In
should?
the building permit regulations.
So in Title 11, building permit.
Well,
Yeah.
Title 11 doesn't have anything to do with building permits. I think that's 7.
I don't remember, 7, yeah, you may be right, it may be 7. But in there is where you need to actually put that thing.
So I'll find it and work on a draft for something.
I was gonna say, maybe some other towns have solved this
Yeah.
one.
Oh,
I'm
no,
sure they
have.
That's always where I go to steal stuff.
I mean, I would imagine Park City's probably had issues like this, that they saw they would steal something.
Given all the construction that's about to happen, I'd like not to visit this problem on other people.
Yeah. I mean, with all the stuff coming up in the next few years,
Yep.
we should have this one solved.
Yep.
So,
I mean, for instance, there's stuff right now, if you went up to, Soaring Hawk, there's excavation equipment up there that's been sitting there.
I can see it out I can see it
I
out
mean,
there.
I'm talking about the back end.
Oh, okay.
Because there's additional work that they're
Yep.
doing in the back end.
Yep.
That stuff's been sitting there the whole winter. Again, so I think there is an appropriate need to do that. And that, whatever you do on the building permit, which is towards the builder, we maybe should look to see if we apply it also to the developer for, grading issues and stuff like this, because that's when they actually build, bring in the real big equipment.
well, sure, Nate's had equipment sitting down there in Deer Springs for months too.
Yeah,
Which is fine.
yeah, which
I
is fine.
I have
I don't have
no
that much
issue
of
with
a
that.
problem, because it's outside,
So far
not
away from
outside,
it.
it's so far away.
And there's no habitable buildings anywhere near.
I mean, if you remember on our construction
Same thing
noise
with lighting.
ordinance, there was that discussion, there's a provision in that noise ordinance that talks about distance.
Yeah.
From an occupied structure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are sections here in Title 11 that seem to play into this. 107, 108 is building permits,
Oh, okay.
and 111 is nuisance.
So this is Title 11.
Well, I don't know, it might be in Title 7. This is where,
Yeah.
One title may not be
Possible.
in sync with the other title.
Hey, Dan, are you on the line? Dan? Oh, terrific. I'm glad you're on the line because I have a question for you. So, Kurt just brought up, is it possible to have a deeper discussion about a draft of something along this line at our 21st meeting? And we also have the design, telecommunications design ordinance that we wanted on the 21st meeting. I got a note today from Jan that they were unable to notice it with 10 days.
Okay.
We heretofore have operated under the notion that anytime we discuss a potential ordinance that we have to notice it 10 days. Are we operating under an accurate assumption, or do we have some leeway here when the Planning Commission is discussing potential ordinances?
If it's a land use ordinance, as opposed to sort of an administrative function ordinance, then it's a different standard. The land use ordinance has to have a 10-day notice. So a land use ordinance is anything that affects the development, use of land, construction of land, subdivision of land, that sort of thing. If what you're proposing is something that is just purely an administrative function that doesn't have direct effect on a person's ability or to develop land or the way they develop land, then you don't have to give 10 days notice.
Okay, so I sent you a copy of the designs guidelines ordinance, draft ordinance. That, in my mind, is not land use based on your definition.
No, I think that is land use, right? Because let me pull it back up again. That document would. Okay, hold on.
But it's a franchisee, not a developer.
Well, it's a person who uses. Well, let's see. So you're saying that because you're not a developer, does that impact?
I'm not saying that. I'm asking that.
Yeah. So hold on just a second. Let me look again, because there's a statutory definition of land use ordinance. Okay, so, well, they're calling it, land use ordinance means any decision adopted by ordinance, law, map, code, et cetera, that governs the use or development of land. Includes the amendment of the zoning map or the text of the zoning code. Impacts an applicant use of land. So you're not talking about, I guess it's a good question, right? Because the individual would be an applicant. So in other words, the utility provider would be an applicant, but that particular applicant would not be the owner of the land being used.
Yeah.
Right.
So do we have a green light on that one to put it on the agenda?
Well, when I had looked at this, I had been envisioning that this would fall in the category of a land use regulation.
You want to ponder it and let me know?
Yeah, so I was hoping, when you sent that over, I was hoping that Jan or Lynette would get that on the agenda for the 21st.
We were hoping that too, but that hasn't happened. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Okay.
I mean,
well,
obviously we'd like to expedite this if possible. So if you could look at it, if you think we can get it on, we'd like to get it on.
Yeah. Okay.
This is 21st.
That is a good question. It's an interesting question, because typically the land use regulation, the person affected absolutely is the landowner, but in this instance, you're making a good point. Let me look at it and see if I can find anything that gives us a little bit more direction.
Okay. And sooner the better, obviously. And then the second one is, if we are entertaining putting a draft together of this heavy equipment storage problem, is that land use?
Well, if it goes to development, probably, right? Because you're talking about restrictions on how the person develops their property, and so yeah. But let's get it. I agree with you that you should get it moving. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that absolutely is within the purview of the Planning Commission to tell these guys what the sense of the community is in terms of how they develop. But I would say that constitutes a land use regulation, because you're identifying the way that a person uses their land for development purposes.
Okay. So, go ahead, Beas.
I got two questions with Dan, if I can.
Sure.
One is, have you had a chance to review the flow chart that was forwarded over to you? Do you remember what that is, Dan?
Yes, I remember your email, and it was great, but no, I have not had a chance to give it substantive review.
Okay, so what I was hoping to do, and is to actually update the Planning Commission on the 21st on where we stand with regard to that, because you have that on the agenda.
Okay.
And I was hoping to be able to actually kick it off and implement it, but I need his approval that the flow chart reflects what's in the town code. And then what we can actually do is meet with all the administration people and literally put it into effect. And that flow chart literally says, whichever one of them receives it, okay, has to take some measures in the form of documenting, but then it's sent to the zoning administrator, who in this instance is the mayor, okay? Or in the instance of the MDA, it is the MDA administrator, which I think Dan would also say is most likely the mayor of that thing.
Right now, yeah.
And then he has 30 days to actually go and assess completeness before anything happens of pushing it forward to the Planning Commission.
And it has to go to engineering before that too, and all of that happens in 30 days.
So that flow chart and the explanation, and it's important for Lynette and Carol and Ken to all understand it, including Bill, get the request, and all of a sudden you're getting a comment saying, can we put
Put
it on the agenda?
Yeah.
You know, so it's important that that flow chart be understood and be implemented. And I
The
want to do
timeline.
it at the same period of time we actually introduce the new application forms, which reflect what's in the town code.
Yeah.
So that's just, Dan, I'm just trying to give you an idea of how much, what the implications are of your approval or not. Okay, because there's a lot of things that are behind it.
Okay, I like the where you're going with that, Vitas. I think that's sounds like a very good approach, and definitely I think that's something that getting the town staff on board with an application process and revision and their responsibilities with respect to receiving those applications is super important. So yes,
It
21st.
should be laminated and on everybody's desk.
Yeah.
You're right.
But,
More
you know,
tattoos on the back of their hand.
The agreement is that it would also be used for, because it's actually setting kind of a precedent on what the procedure is. So when they start using, you know, for building permits or any kind of other things, they're going to start piggybacking on top of that, okay, and then showing in the flow chart that this one, because the specific thing varies off. So, you know, the discussions I had with Jan, you know, this thing is pretty doggone important to be able to put it on the docket and have it as an agreed upon procedure and have everybody educated on it. That will include the town council and the planning commission. So everybody knows how this thing actually arrived here, as opposed to in the past.
Totally agree. Now, one thing to piggyback on that is in the engineering selection committee process, we were looking for an engineering firm that had experience in process as well. So we're going to be looking heavily to them in the early stages of their engagement with the town, is to help us do a number of things. One is rewriting Title 11 and putting a process together that coincides with it. So this is fantastic, and this gets the acute issues resolved, but understand it within probably 6 months, there'll be a new process in place.
Absolutely. And but my guess is it will still have the basic bare bones, but it will be more detailed and more involved on where the thing has to go and why.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Ultimately,
great start.
I think one of the things we may want to consider is outsourcing this completely to the engineering firm.
Yes, I agree. If the mayor could appoint one of them as the zoning
Yeah.
administrator,
Yep.
you know, their administrative staff is the zoning administrator,
Yep.
and then it goes straight to them, and we don't ever see it until all that stuff's done.
Could
That would
very
be
well be the
optimal.
case.
All the end runs and all of the shenanigans that.
Then who's on first?
But
stuff?
yeah, we want this all solved. The only way we're going to do it is outsourcing it.
Okay, so
Yes.
Dan, that's the first question. The second question is, I know that your assistant was working on the resolutions and the ordinances to figure out which ones were approved. And one of those that was actually at issue was one that stimulated need to actually codify, if you will, Title 10 and 11 to get them at least up to date. Is there any update on that? Has she finished? Can we move forward with 10 and 11?
So, great question, and in fact, in light of a lot of the email traffic that's been going back and forth over the last couple of days about this issue and the various permutations of the code, I brought that up with her again today and said, where are we? And she said, I still need some more information from Lynette with respect to some of the documents that we're trying to tie down. Was this adopted? Was this not adopted? Do you have copies? So she's reached out to Lynette again today to say, look, these are the documents that we need to do to finalize that. So what I can do, Vitas, is to go back to her, to my assistant Ashley tomorrow and say, hey, look, you're still looking for some stuff. Is there a way that we can
Break out 10 and 11.
10 and 11, yeah, and say, is the stuff that's outstanding that we're still waiting for from Lynette, does this go to 10 and 11? Is there a way that you can identify whether or not that would impact 10 and 11? And we'll try and get that. I'll ask her that, and then also, you guys can sort of on your end push that as well.
If you, Dan, if you want, you can send me the questions that she has by resolution or an ordinance. Okay, I'm sure she has it like that. And if necessary, I'll sit down with Lynette and I won't leave until she answers.
I'll
Shows
forward
you.
you exactly. Yeah, I'll forward you exactly what
Plan.
she sent today
Shows.
because it does outline exactly what we're looking for.
Because I sense that with Lynette, she's getting pulled in different directions with various things. Because, I mean, part of the issue has been, go ask Lynette about this, and she's got it in her head, as opposed to having it, literally documented in places.
And she's oiling the squeaky wheels right now, and that's.
Yeah, and so if I'm gonna be the squeaky wheel and it gets us past this, let me be the squeaky wheel.
Yeah. Now, Dan, I also.
I got a question for you guys, because you're past me a little bit on what you're doing with that. I'd just like to get clear, maybe these guys want to get clear too. Are you going back right now to past history and saying,
Yes.
these are the resolutions?
Yes.
Yes.
Because all that has to get into the code management
Exactly,
company.
way in the rear
So-
mirror.
And it's literally,
It's gonna be all of that?
each resolution has to be looked at by Dan and his assistants to say that it's actually completely
Adopted, right?
executed,
Signed off
adopted.
by the mayor, because it doesn't count until Lynette and the mayor sign off
Right.
on the resolution. And so.
We've got some that the answer is, we don't have the documentation that it's ever been signed off.
And you can't do that when you have a code management service, because they will monitor exactly that.
So going forward, we're
Yeah.
good, it's just,
And
You gotta go backwards, and even
crazy,
if you
right.
do it
So
with
this
a
is
management system.
this is
you
a
have to
funnel
go through this.
into, well, somebody's gonna
Yes.
funnel into them,
Exactly.
past history, they decouple it, reassemble it, and then go forward.
Yep.
Or
And
you
Dan,
rewrite the adopting, or, you rewrite this, Dan, and this
And
is
get
the
it
question I have, is, and you saw the email thread, should we be doing an adopting ordinance where we can take all the codes from title, particularly 11 and maybe 7 as well, but, the titles, and do an adopting ordinance, and does it have any hold over, past resolutions, so to speak, or, in this case, the MDA related to Sunrise? Can you give us some kind of, feedback on that?
I think that we've discussed that before, at least in part, and doing an adopting ordinance or sort of a clarifying ordinance. Hey, this is the status of our code as of, May 1st, 2019. Is yeah, that's awesome. That's the thing to do. The only question is making sure that what we have as the code is what we want as the code. So in other
Right.
words, I mean, there were some questions about whether what's on the online right now on the town's website is in fact updated to reflect everything that's been adopted, and I think that we all
know it's not.
understand that the likelihood is no. And so the question is, going back and looking at some of these things that have been adopted, what do we want? What do we not want? If we just want to say, start with a baseline and say, look, we don't want to be confused about what is and what is not the code, and so we're going to take what's on the website and recommend that be the code, and then we'll at least have a baseline to go forward with. That's easy to do, and again, since that's a certainly would include a land use component, that's something you'd have to give plenty of notice of, but it's just up to you. I mean, so Ralph, the short answer is, yeah, you could do that right away. But if you want us to complete this project of saying what has the town adopted and updated before, and is that included in what we've got now? Before you do an adopting or authorizing resolution, then we can complete that project. But it's entirely.
I want the process completed. And Dan, I sent you last week, I guess it was, the Planning Commission's attempt at that on Title 11. We have that for Title 10 as well. If you want to vet those,
That's the thing that he's talking about, actually going back to his assistant, see if those two can be pulled out, that she's got.
But I'm saying we have a head start at that.
Yeah.
So if you want the head started versions, we're happy to have this. Okay.
He's got them.
All right. Okay. All right, we good on that?
Thank you.
Okay, so Dan's going to get back with us about the design guidelines. One, whether or not that can be on the 21st. We're hoping that it can. We're relatively certain the heavy equipment one will have to be an April one.
He's gonna have to get back to us on the load chart, and
Yeah.
he will also get back to us on
The list of
resolutions and ordinances.
the list of things that his assistants would.
So Dan,
Yeah.
are you going to be able to provide us with feedback from Vitas's flow chart by the 21st?
Yes, 10-4.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Kurt,
Yeah.
this 1 second, Jerry. I just wanted to mention that while you were all talking, I was also scrolling through our codes. And Title 7, Chapter 2 has an ordinance on obstructions of public streets and property. It's not 100% on point with what we're raising now, but I think that, Kurt, you ought to start there and see if you could expand it.
Okay. 7.2?
Yeah. It's
Okay, thank you.
7.02.101 is part of it.
Remember that.
7.0, Tiger.
Okay.
Thank you,
So-
Sarah.
This next part is you guys being able to sync folders locally, so you don't have to go through the Teams interface to get at your folders if you don't want to. So I'm going to walk through that. Probably be good if you sort of walk with me and just let's get it set up. Okay? So I'm sharing.
I apologize. I'm unclear. What are we syncing, and what's the advantage of doing that?
All right. So right now, if you want to get to a document, you've got to come into Teams. You've got to navigate to the appropriate place. You've got to click on it and say open in Word if that's what you want to do. Versus, so I've already done this for a bunch of them. So you'll note what I pulled up here for during the meeting was I'm just going directly here to my Explorer, Windows Explorer, and I can open it this way because it's all synced. So, and it will show you what you don't have. Let's see if I can find an example of it.
So what is the advantage of this? Just if you don't have internet access, or you?
That's a big one, yes, but it's also the Teams interface, as great as it is, it's a little clunky at times. And if I want to open two documents at the same time or from two different places, it's it's a single thread, right?
I have to download one.
Right? So being able to do this. So you'll note here in this one, there's a Hideout zoning summary, and it's got these little cloud thingies on it. So these don't actually exist on my hard drive right now, but I know that they're there. And if I clicked on it, it's going to immediately download it. So if I do this, it'll say downloading. There you go. And it's going to download it real time for me, and then it's going to open it up. Okay. So when you set up syncing, it makes it a whole lot easier to deal with the file system of Teams.
But that'll work. Will that work in a Mac?
It should. You guys are about to tell me. I don't have a Mac, so I can't try it. All right, but we'll give it a fly. All right. So the way that we're going to start this is go into Planning Commission General, and up in the top there's this Open in SharePoint. So you see that link up at the top that says Open in SharePoint. You want to go to Files. So Planning Commission General and Files.
Open in SharePoint.
Open in SharePoint. So go ahead and click on that. And that's going to open the SharePoint side of this. Okay. Click on it, didn't I?
So review that again, we're opening this SharePoint.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it's opening SharePoint now.
Okay, so the thing that you want to be aware of is that in SharePoint, Teams, when it creates it in SharePoint, it creates the files a level deeper than what we actually want to sync on. So what we're going to do, and boy, I am running slow. I guess I'm waiting on whatever's happening.
Because you're in a Microsoft computer.
No, because I have a teeny machine here. I mean, from a RAM and processing, this is the...
Hey, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna sign off at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Have anything else?
Nope, very good, thank you.
Admin stuff.
Thanks.
Okay, so, if we go back and look at our planning commission site here, you note that we have all of these channels, right? One of them is the general channel. So if we go back and look at what it's opening up for us in SharePoint, goodness, why are we so slow? But you'll note that it's opening it in shared documents in general. So we actually want to go up one directory. So
To documents or general?
to documents. So you should be able to click on that link. So we want to go up one level to documents.
To the master folder?
Correct.
Just the document?
Yeah.
Yep, because we want to sync all of the channels, not just the general channel.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay? All right, so once you're there, you should have in your menu something that says sync.
Yep.
Okay? You click on that, and the option is going to be, it's going to pop some stuff up for you about OneDrive for Business. And you're going to want to say yes for all that stuff. So open in OneDrive for Business, or get what the exact phrasing is
Open
for it.
Microsoft OneDrive, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, get ready.
So once you do that, it's going to do some stuff in the background, and eventually it's going to come back and it's going to say, you're synced.
If nothing happens, may need to get the latest version of OneDrive.
Yes. So then you're going to say, open Microsoft OneDrive. When you do that, in my case, it'll probably say you're already synced, but that getting ready to sync thing, you can close that whenever you want. But so then it's going to eventually come back and it's going to say you're synced. And at that point,
So I have to get OneDrive.
okay, so yeah, if you haven't already downloaded that, now that's free in your Office 365. So you can download that if you need it, if you don't already have it. But once you've done that, you're going to see over here, when I open up Windows Explorer or whatever Mac does with that, you may need to have a sign-in. It may prompt you to sign in. All right, so see, in this case, it says you're already syncing. So I got the message here that I'm already syncing. So eventually you'll get a message back that says, hey, we're done. You know, you're all ready, you're syncing. But once it does that, then it's going to create for you in your file system something that says Hideout Town. And then within that is going to be all of the things that you're syncing. So in this case, I've got Planning Commission documents. Now I've also got some other teams that I'm syncing for as well. But you'll have that.
I don't think I have OneDrive either, primarily because I have my corporate laptop, so I'm gonna have to do some offline work on it.
Yeah, so you'll want to download a copy of Business for OneDrive if you want to
do it on my PC.
Okay, so that's the one thing, and that gives you now access to all of the stuff from your file
So I
system.
just want to be clear on this. This is, so on the OneDrive that we have access to, which is a cloud drive, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So on the local drive, that information is just going to come over to my directory or folder that it's going to create called Hideout.
It's the Hideout Town, so in this case, you'll note I've got a OneDrive that's personal. I've got a OneDrive for Hideout Town, but I've also got, when you do the syncing, it's going to create a different kind of folder structure for you for Hideout Town. And then you're going to have, this is the team, Planning Commission, and Documents is the root of that. And then within it, you see, here's all the channels. All the channels, right, become folders. And now if I want to get to it, if I want to create a new one, I can do it right here, and it will take care of uploading it and syncing it and all that kind of stuff. So
I have to get the most updated version of OneDrive, but yeah.
That seems to be the key here for all of us here, is having that one, and probably putting the right security rights on here. For me, you know, there might be some firewall or something at this point.
Yep.
So, okay.
Okay, so that's the first thing that I wanted to show you. I use this all the time.
You have to manually hit sync, or can you put it on?
It will take care of it all automatically for you. And, you know, for me, when I'm using the
Wait.
team,
Would you say it will take care of it all?
it will sync for you. And
When? You know, if
it's got a timer thing that runs all the time. So it's always looking for what's changed, and it'll take care of it for you. So it's all seamless to you.
So as you connect to the internet, then
Yep.
then it's back. It's going to do behind the scenes
syncing. And again, you'll look at the symbols. You know, so some things I don't actually have local because I got the little cloud symbol. These checkbox ones say we're in sync. And there's
Why do you
another,
have cloud ones just because it hasn't synced?
because I haven't accessed it locally yet. So as soon as first time I access it, it'll download it.
Jerry, that's all in OneDrive, right?
So you're not downloading all your files?
No, only the ones that you are accessing, but you know they're all there. So if I want to access it, I just
Now I
click on
got
it
it.
and it goes, boom.
Now I'm with
But
you.
if you're not connected to the net, then you really don't know what's there behind that you're missing, correct?
You don't know if something had been added that isn't in your sync yet, if you're disconnected. But to your point, if I wanted to work on a draft ordinance while I'm on the plane, I can do that off of my hard drive, off my synced hard drive, and then as soon as I connect the next time, it'll go, all right, here we go, and it'll sync it up for you. So you can work offline with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that,
we get the same thing. We call it a briefcase, and as soon as you sync,
yeah,
it reconnects. But what I was curious here was, meaning our, island.
yeah.
But what I was interested here is whether you can just sync everything from the top folder on down, and just say, when new files are added, just sync to my. Okay.
And in some cases,
So
you
this is an active
really
thing.
wouldn't want to do that, because right now, I've got maybe 10% of the files that are here locally.
I was going to say,
on
what's the
on my hard
storage at
drive,
this point? Yeah.
right? And yeah, the town has a whole lot more storage than you're ever likely to have on your laptop. So, yeah, you probably don't want the whole thing down on your local drive. But, when you've got a local version of it, it's much faster to deal with.
Can you, so these folders or directories here, if we click on the folder, can we sync the entire folder? Let's say we want to work on it, we want to look at everything
No.
for Deer Springs tomorrow.
You'd have to open each one and it would download it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Over.
But so, for example, if we looked at this design standards that we were talking about, I opened this in Word from my local drive. When it opens in Word, I'm still going to have that autosave thing up in the top.
Right.
And every time it does that, it's saving it locally, and then it's syncing a copy up too. So Kurt and I were in the document at the same time,
Yeah.
editing. I'm from my local drive, through my local drive, and we're still getting those live changes. So it does a really fantastic job of keeping everything in sync on all of those platforms. So my autosave is still on here. I've still got the,
Yeah, I agree. I think,
Yeah.
Jerry, on that
Does a good
OneDrive,
job.
you talking about just, these are just things off of Teams, or should I actually put any of the Hideout, files that I have on mine in there?
you could, I mean, we'd want to have a place in Teams for that. If these are things that you want to share, then absolutely.
If not,
Then don't worry about it.
leave it.
Yeah.
Okay, and how do I I finally got OneDrive on here.
Okay.
So it's like I'm back a ways.
All right, so back on the SharePoint site, you'll hit sync. and it'll pop up saying open in OneDrive for Business, and you'll say yes, you'll assent to that, and then it'll go off and do all of the stuff that it's got to do, and then it will notify you when it's done.
Hold on, I got a problem. It says you have 2 copies of OneDrive on your computer. Only one can run at a time. Where my main ones install one, like install.
Yeah, so you'll want to go into your
Probably get rid of one as long as there's nothing in it.
your Mac equivalent of add remove programs and remove.
I have a bad program that can find that.
All right, so that's the first thing that I wanted to show you. The second was how you can set up alerts. So you'll note here, I got to remember where it is now. It's in this. You'll see this 3-dot ellipsis at the end of the menu. I'm back in the Documents folder for Planning Commission, and you got the 3 dots. If you click on those 3 dots, it'll open it up, and you'll see this Alert Me. So if you click that Alert Me, then it's going to open up a dialog for you to say what you want to be alerted on. And you've got a lot of flexibility here to say what you want to be alerted on or not. So it's going to default to be starting from wherever you did the Alert Me from, and you want to do that all the way at the documents level so you get everything. And then I want to be sent an email, okay? I only want it, or I want all changes. You can say new items that have been added, existing stuff that's been modified, or items that are deleted. So in my case, I want to see all changes. Then you can say the next section is, I want to know when anything changes, but you could also say someone other than me changed it. So you got some options there. And then the final thing is, I only want to be notified once a day, or I want to be notified immediately, et cetera, et cetera. So I do a daily summary. No, only if you've set it up.
Well, when our nightly document updates you.
You're already getting this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do we need to do anything else for?
You don't then. I didn't know that you were already getting this.
Yeah, we get it every
Yeah. So it's an email. It says
Terrific.
all the documents that are changed.
every little thing.
Who made the change?
Particularly if you've been in there editing the document for a long time, you've got to.
It's like,
Right. Oh, yeah. Every time you save, close.
You went
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
you went that award.
Every time that auto save happens, it counts as a.
So I don't think we need to do it.
You're right. You don't have to do anything different there. All right. So that's all good. Okay. There's one other thing I wanted to mention, and then I'll open if any other commissioner has something they want to cover tonight. I wanted to address both Bruce and Tony. So I've talked with the mayor, and you'll be ratified on Thursday as part of the Planning Commission. We hope. Strangely enough, back in July of last year, the town council gave the mayor approval to appoint the Planning Commission, but they never officially ratified it. So they're going to be ratifying the entire Planning Commission, hopefully on Thursday, including all of us. Okay? Yeah.
Not good, huh?
Now, what I wanted to tell both of you, my conversations with Phil, we want to see Bruce as the member and Tony as the alternate on the Planning Commission. Okay?
That's if the council.
If the council agrees.
So in that case, then I will tell you, I'm not going to resign from what I do with the Russell part. So you have to let me know that's a post problem.
Okay. Okay. So what Tony's talking about is he's on the transition team
That's
for Russell.
important to the nth
Right.
degree.
You know, from my perspective, I've intentionally not gotten
I know.
terribly involved in that because I don't want, particularly as the chair, I don't want to be seen as, yeah, right. So I'm trying to keep myself clean of that. So, I think that if we ever have anything that comes up with regard to Rustler, as long as we disclose that and, give the parties if you're a voting member at the time, then we'd want to disclose that before we vote on something.
It's the most important thing going on in this town. It's what you're working on right now, in my opinion.
Transition.
The Rutzler HOA transition from developer to resident, to homeowner.
Hopefully a model for another
Yeah, it'll be.
organization, another HOA.
Yeah. And, Tony, I have your nameplate right here, and I will put it back, I'll put it over here with the rest of it. Please tell me, I copied your name, but please tell me, and, you know, you're gonna have to tell me probably a couple times how you pronounce your last name, because there's not enough vowels for me. Okay, how do you pronounce it?
Y at the end. That's the Polish version of Smith.
Is that right? Tony Smith. So I call you Tony Smith then, huh? No, how do you pronounce it?
Polish version doesn't like it looks.
What is it?
Matizik.
Matizik.
Easy. Matizik.
Yeah, just don't look at it.
Okay.
They just forget all these
Wow.
in here, it's just
Matizik. Yeah, so the three letters in the middle, you just,
Get rid of
they're
it.
silent. All right, terrific. All right, anybody else have anything?
Hopefully. Yeah, that's not gonna be an easy one either. when you
Well,
look at it.
Yeah. And it's,
Easier than Severini.
I was gonna say, we have
bigger ones already.
tough last names all around.
so easy.
Well,
I just spelled your name about 45 times.
I know, I know.
We had a guy over here who looked at the agenda, and there was,
Oh, yeah.
remember Commissioner Rapinskis?
Yeah.
And he's like, what's this policy, policy? No, and you had to say, that's the commissioner's name.
Yeah. I don't think any of us have an easy last name, so,
That's for sure.
except Sarah.
It's just two simple little words put together. And do you know how many
Yeah.
times misspelled and missaid?
Okay.
When are we gonna get to see you next?
Hopefully in April.
Boy, there's been some good skiing, Sarah.
All right, so anybody else have anything we want to talk about?
Well, I schedule,
Oh, you
I
reminded me.
did schedule, I put it off to the 18th, had to schedule, Tensor for 6 p.m. And so, let's hope that, I don't want to cancel them a
No.
third time. I don't think they'll,
They're the slopes firm,
well, one of the two.
okay,
So,
We need
they've been
Phil on
most
board.
responsive.
and we'll
And
have
I
to
put
know.
this in an email, and I said, if the 18th,
I know, you're
April-
gonna have to do
and I
better
put
than
it
that, though.
off far enough, so, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, and I promised this guy, I said, we'll do it this time, you know, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go back.
It has to be a public meeting, so we have to
So
know.
that's our public meeting. That's.
It's a one-day public meeting, right? But,
No, he's talking about
No,
the
I'm
slopes
talking about the
presentation.
slopes geotechnical firm.
when were you talking about?
The
April
April
meeting.
meeting, standard April meeting
Right,
between,
we're-
give them 45 minutes.
Okay.
You know, it's
Right.
like, all we need to do is really.
You're talking about some
yeah.
special
Put
meeting.
it out. No, we don't need a special meeting
Yeah.
for that. I don't, you know, the only reason I put it out to the town council, so if they want to plug in, like Chris, whomever,
Yeah.
they're gonna plug in and, get the idea of what they're doing.
That's
The second thing, the
You
code
reminded me.
management
Yes,
firm,
that's fair.
Kimball Clark, I've been in touch with on and off. Jan knows him, but in my emails back and forth with Jan, I don't think she took the responsibility to get ahold of Kimball. So she did. She did, okay.
She did,
I'm
so,
not going to,
um,
there's no sense of both of us working on this.
absolutely correct. So the last I knew was she was working on getting a date. The mayor had decided that he did not want to public meeting it, and he only wanted Jan, the mayor, and myself in on that demo. And I think it was supposed to be scheduled for the end of the month, but with what's going on with Jan now, I have no idea where
Well,
that's.
anybody can get a demo. I mean, I got the demo just by calling him up. That's standard policy with most of these software companies. Same thing with the other Sterling, you know. You can just call them up, anybody can, and say, you know, I don't know if we'll give you a demo right away, but, there's no secret to their demo. It's,
Well, let me ask,
so I'm not quite sure where you're
yeah.
going on this.
so let me ask
The mayor wanted it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure anybody's
agree
going
with
on
that.
this.
I think-
It's public
There's too
information.
many stakeholders in here who have different slices of understanding and opinions on this. I think everybody.
I personally
should look
think
at it.
Dan should be listening in on that, because he's a
Absolutely.
feeder into this process, and he has to be, you know, he's gotta be looking at the legal aspects of everything we're doing. I think
Well,
both the towns, it's town council and planning commission, everybody should be.
that was my position. The mayor disagreed. He and I had a disagreement on it. He is the mayor. So, you know,
But again, I think this needs to be brought to the council, because I don't think the council would agree with that. I think they would like to have some input onto essentially the foundation for what our town works on.
These are core codes for the town.
Agreed.
Right.
Anybody,
Agreed.
I mean, even a citizen should be able to say, to look at, this is
We
public
want them
information.
to be
we
able
want
to
them to
look
be
at
able to
it.
look at the
I mean,
codes.
you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's not just the code that you want it. Right now, the fee schedule is not listed on there, the zoning map is not on there. I mean, we shouldn't be dependent on the county for
Correct.
the accuracy of the zoning map
Correct.
that we
It's
control.
not accurate.
It's more, importantly, to all these points about how the resolutions process, they do it, they'll help process this in the background to make sure it's done correctly, and then the resolutions are updated.
Yes.
It's electronically, you know,
But the problem is going backwards, all the mess back there.
Yeah, the problem is
is a
going
problem.
backwards. So part of it is, do we go backwards, or do we write from square one? You know?
Yeah, yeah. So
And-
let me ask this of you, Ralph, if you can. I don't know when Jan's last day is gonna be. We need a handoff. So if you could
So,
contact Jan.
listen, last day.
Yeah,
she
she resigned.
She resigned today.
Well, I just came in from Buenos Aires this afternoon here, so I'm usually,
Why don't you know this? Stay on top of this stuff, Rob.
I haven't slept for 30 hours here.
So none of us know why, or
Really?
when the last
That
day is,
stinks.
right? So it's, you know, it's a
Are
blow,
you-
but.
Then, okay, so you guys, you and the mayor are gonna take charge of whatever you wanna learn from,
I don't want to take that route. I want a handoff from Jan to someone. If that's you,
well,
then.
I know Kimball, I mean, I've talked to
Okay,
him multiple
so
times.
I'd like
He
to do
emails
that.
me regularly, and the only reason I left it to Jan is they had a previous relationship from past history, and I said, take it off my plate
Now,
anytime.
I'll tell you, and this may be, because of ignorance on my part, I had the same stance that I want the entire planning commission, I want the town council, I want everybody involved in this demo. And Phil says, I'm not giving licenses to 15 people. There's gonna be like 3 people that are gonna have edit rights to this thing. And I don't know, how the software works well enough to say, to counter that.
Well, typically, these companies give you five, you know, concurrent licenses. Otherwise you pay more. So you're absolutely right. You wouldn't want to give everybody licenses. They have a lot, usually, and both of them, well, I think Sterling is a 5 concurrent license set, whereas, I believe Unicode.
Regardless, there's a difference between editing it and picking who is going to do the work, right? I would never want all of us having, right?
Neither would I.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah.
But you want to have input into who we're using.
Absolutely.
And because I don't know how those,
It's not.
the drafters,
No.
well,
If you have shared
But hold on, guys,
licenses, any of us could use it. So there's 2 ways to approach it.
no, wait a minute, let me finish. I don't know how you license drafters versus approvers versus, you know, what the layers of user is. We often will be drafting. At any given point in time, every member of the planning commission might be doing a draft ordinance. Now, right now, we're doing that in Word. Is that how we do it going forward? And then we transfer it into this package by a single person?
Yeah, that's the way I understand it.
Okay,
so to
if
speak.
that's the case, then
We
that's.
can continue to do using SharePoint as much as I know, because it actually, well, you know, Unicode is probably a little bit more collaborative, but not as collaborative as we are. I went through our process versus their process. They're moving to that point, so I said, can we start pushing our final changes? Because we don't need to push anything until what I would call, you know, your final draft.
Yeah, votable.
Why would you want to have multiple drafts going to your code management company? And then at that point, they vet out, along with, you know, Dan, that Dan's been doing this, they vet out what are the cross connections to other pieces of code and other titles? So they can say, be careful, before the final draft, you're connected to this section and this section. And then when we clarify all that, we're good.
See that all the time, right?
Yeah.
We see that all the time and everything we do, there's like, ooh, I didn't realize. I was just trying to figure out, it's perfect. My only concern is, and I'll talk to Phil about this is not three people making this, seeing this thing and making this choice. There's too many stakeholders who work on documents and work on this process that need to understand and be happy with who we select.
Well, the administrator's key and the mayor's key, because they have to sign off as the final resolution. That has to be codified within the code management.
Exactly. That's at the end. I'm talking about in selecting a code. Which better fits our style?
Yeah.
We want to have.
Well, I mean, I have my opinions, but I don't want to force anything either here. So I'd say it really should be, take a look at two ways to do this. One is what I would call more analog.
I would respectfully disagree. You need to be at that meeting. You know what you're talking about. You've seen this stuff. You've worked on the planning commission. You need to be at the presentation and help guide
I wasn't
us.
saying that. I was saying that.
You're not going to be at that meeting.
Unless something changes.
If he's looking at it as if he's looking at the meeting and saying, I'm only gonna approve 3 business licenses, unless he actually gives you a business license,
You never see it.
you're not gonna see it.
So we want you, along with all of us, to be there.
I think it should be, we're all really qualified here. I mean, every business should be approved.
I think you need to push from the
I will.
council side.
I will.
You know, I've had that conversation with already, and I was shut down. So I think he needs to hear from multiple points.
And I wouldn't want to make a decision, it's like, nobody should be making a decision on this one alone. And I would like to have Dan's input as well, because he is going to be, probably going to be a user of this as well. And because it's so legal, all this stuff is so legal. Sorry, I know he's not. He's the least computer literate.
He's not. He won't get on the teams. It's like,
but
life would be so much better.
High level, what their service
He may have his own system as the one that actually does it.
Yeah.
Maybe he may not do it personally himself, but he may have somebody in his office.
He's been pro getting us code management.
And he knows, he's seen it in other,
He's wrong side of things because he's looking at the wrong version of code.
Right.
And if you look at all the towns in Utah, I'd say most of them are now have moved in that direction. And,
It's a no-brainer.
It's
a no-brainer.
Of all the digital things we're doing, this is one thing we need.
No-brainer.
Okay, are we done? We have a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Motion carries.
All in favor.
We are adjourned.
So long, Sarah.